City Wrestling.
Oh yeah! Well, welcome to Grind City Wrestling. This is episode 280, if you can believe it. I am Dustin Starr. Thank you for joining us. You can go back and check out the archives at grindcitymedia.com/podcast. We have interviews with wrestling's biggest stars and so much more. Last week, we talked about who killed WCW. Was it Vince Russo? Was it Goldberg? Was it Hulk Hogan? It definitely wasn't me, like Eric is trying to say here. Well, I'm sure we're going to argue a little bit more about that as the season finale was this week. I checked that out. So this week, it's the best wrestling that we watched all week. Plus, the finale of Who Killed WCW. And, of course, AEW Forbidden Door is coming up this Sunday, so we'll talk all about it. Devin is out with the NBA draft. He's on the road with the Grizzlies. So right now, let me introduce my co-host and tag team partner. He's a local business owner. He's an A-list celebrity, ladies and gentlemen. It's E-Rock, Eric McMahon. What's up, E?
I'm really excited to talk about Who Killed WCW today because, you know, you get a lot of people and they always talk about, oh, it was Hulk Hogan's creative control and it was this and it was that. And like really with people who know nothing about actual business. So it's going to be fun to talk about this with two guys who are business guys. You own your own business in this industry. I'm a businessman. And so I understand how things are at play that are so beyond creative because we can always get by. We can always get over creative, but you can't get over dollars and cents. You can't get over allocating assets to different things. There's a lot of things you can't get over. And you know, a lot of fans will just be like, Hulk Hogan killed him. Like, no, he didn't. He may have killed that quarter. Or he may have killed that whatever. You know what I mean?
I'll talk about Hulk Hogan here in a bit. I also love that you brought up creative and business are two different things. Very rarely do I really think that creative interferes with business, but in this case, it might have just a little bit. So we'll talk about who killed WCW. But first, what's new? Anything new going on? Did you watch wrestling this week? I know that you are one busy dude and also one busy dad, too.
Yeah, 3 kids, man, ain't no joke. Especially all five and under, and one being a newborn. You know, honestly, I didn't watch a lot of wrestling. I try and pop in and watch it when I get the chances, but you know, once you get the kids to bed, you're going to bed. You ain't staying up, and especially I'm like you, man. I'm an early riser, and I work. You know, I'm up at 4:45. And I don't finish my day until I put the kids down. I finally get to eat dinner around 8:30 or 9. 9:30 rolls around. I'm ready for bed, man. So I can stay busy running, you know, here at the Grizzlies and my businesses. It's crazy.
Also, big shout out to my oldest today. BKO Brady turned sweet 16. So happy birthday, Brady.
I remember when he was born, bro.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? And then now Reese the Beast, he can't wait to celebrate the birthday with his big brother. And then, of course, you know, mama's walking around, her belly keeps growing. And it's like, hey, when your baby sister gets big enough, we're going to go to the doctor and she's coming out of there.
Oh, yeah. Hey, man. Yeah. All right. Well, you'll be in my boat here in about
there we go.
4 months.
That's right. October the 5th is what it is. Just right in time for tip-off of the new basketball season. Anyway, be sure to follow Eric on Twitter at @E_MacLife. Okay. Over the weekend, we had wrestling night at AutoZone Park with Enzo. He went one-on-one with Psycho Simon. Did you get a chance to take a look at any of the highlights from that?
I've seen through your pages for sure. Saw it, man. I'm glad to see Enzo getting back out there. You know, we know the Raw. Listen, he had his fair share of demons and problems, but a lot of you know what he was accused and slandered for, word around was unfounded and people trying to get over on him too. So it's good to see him out there. Now I'm speaking just what I heard. Maybe nothing could be factual or not, but it's good to see him back out there.
I'm with you too. People deserve second, sometimes third chance, especially if they're not convicted or, you know, and there's haters all over the place, but I'm with you. Enzo showed out. People loved him. He was
he really easy to work with?
Oh man, just an absolute sweetheart to work with. And I mean that.
I got a story about Enzo. You'll like this. So, our mascot Grizz, wink, wink. When WWE was coming to town a while ago, and this is when Enzo and Cash were like the biggest thing in WWE.
Oh yeah,
we filmed a video. Do you remember this video I filmed?
I do. Outside FedEx Forum.
It was the highest viewed, at that time, up even a year ago, it was the highest viewed social media tweet that FedEx Forum had ever put out.
I mean, I totally believe it, because back then, and that wasn't that long ago, they could come out and the fans, it was almost like the New Age Outlaws, where you knew every single bit of that promo. Not only was Enzo on his best behavior, and he was before. This is the second time we worked with him, actually 3, because we did back-to-back Saturday and Sunday this week. You guys will see it. You'll love it on Memphis Wrestling. He was absolutely as professional as it gets. Then on the flip side, another guy that gets a bad rap for some reason is Top Dollar, AJ Francis. I feel like that if this guy had never done the dive over the top rope and botched it, that none of this heat or hate or anything like that would ever be discussed, because he was an absolute blast as well. So big shout out to AJ Francis, the TNA Wrestling Digital Media Champion, and of course former WWE superstar Enzo. They were absolutely fantastic. You do not want to miss a VIP session at the Memphis Wrestling Wrestle Center. Check that out, Memphis Wrestling TV. So we had AJ and Enzo. We had the big TV taping on Sunday. Saw Psycho Simon crashing through the table. So Rocky didn't do the dive this time. I think he's going to leave that for Super Grizz next season.
Knows his place. No, and that's actually, I was waiting for something to go viral, but I guess just time permitting wasn't able to happen.
It was just all over the place. It was a really good night. Had fireworks, had a good giveaway, had wrestling. It was just very, very good crowd. I would say if they seat 10,000 at AutoZone Park, there was probably 6 there. It was the biggest wrestling night that we've had so far.
How many people stayed for the after match?
Everybody. I mean, the plaza was absolutely full. So go back and check those pictures out. You can see them on our social media at Memphis Wrestling. Like I said, Devin is out. So Devin, pretty cool, traveling with the team for the NBA draft. Can't wait for the season.
Not just the team, he's with the executives.
How cool is that? So big shout out to Devin. All right, we do have a big show coming up. So here's what we're going to do. I'm sure we're going to argue about who killed WCW. I still kind of think it was Hulk Hogan, even though he did use WCW like everybody's supposed to further his career, to make more money, to protect his image and all that kind of stuff. But we're definitely going to argue about that, because you weren't here last week. So that means I won the argument last week, because you were not here. All right, we're going to do a quick preview of AEW Forbidden Door, because you can watch that absolutely free with me at Dave & Buster's in Memphis. That's coming up this Sunday. So not only will I have free power cards, free AEW Forbidden Door, but I'm also going to have free AEW Collision tickets that's coming up at Landers Center. Plus, we're going to talk about the best wrestling that we watched all week. But first, Memphis Wrestling is on fire. Check it out.
Sunday, July 14th is Memphis Wrestling XL and will be bigger than ever. Featuring former AEW and WWE star Parker Boudreaux, TNA Wrestling star Marty Bell, and more. Reserve your seat at memphiswrestling.tv.
All right, welcome back. Have you ever heard of Parker Boudreaux, a guy that they have billed as the next Brock Lesnar? Sure, you've heard of this guy, right?
I can't put name recognition to it. I've heard the name, but I can't put face recognition to it.
Parker Boudreaux is coming from Memphis Wrestling XL. That's coming up on July the 14th. But let's get into the best wrestling that we watched all week. I already know what you're going to say, so let me hear it.
He knows who killed WC. Listen, and we'll get into the details here in a second, right? But what I love about this, and we touched on it in week 1 when we started talking about it, when we were saying Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, they were irate they weren't in it, because it wasn't about you guys. That wasn't the story they were trying to tell. Well, I love the aspect of quote unquote the marks getting to see, now we got to bring business into it, and not even business as a standalone company. Well, a business that sits within 100 or so other business of these huge conglomerate companies, right? And how all things need to vibe independently, but yet be cohesive at the same time. I loved how they turned that story, because that's the stuff I love, man. We're both businessmen, and we have to see it. And so when I guess what quote unquote Mark is just going to be like, oh, this is because the creative sucked, it killed it. Maybe a little bit, but that's not the overarching thing that completely killed it. You know what I mean? So I love how they told this story.
Yes. Okay. So I agree. Business is different than creative. Okay. What I always like to say, for an example, the Memphis Grizzlies don't care who the Memphis Heritage champion is. They care about how many people are watching the product, or if we do business together, how much of an audience are we going to be able to bring with us, right? They don't necessarily care about who the champion is. Now, on this other level of WCW, creative was so bad, Eric, that they literally went from the #1 wrestling company in the entire world with record numbers and record revenue and all this stuff. Goldberg, NWO, 98 was absolutely gargantuous, but the creative was so bad, Eric, that it literally drove the wrestling fans away. I feel like the creative was
right
so bad.
That, but you're okay. So you're 100% right about it, right? There's no defending the creative, aside from the fact that we don't know what the creative could have been. Because if we go back and we watch these episodes correctly, I mean, even like Nash and Paul were like on the segments, they were saying, am I even allowed to say butt on TV anymore? Because the directive that came down, listen, the directive that came down a lot of times saying, you can't do this and you can't do this. I'll give you prime examples, okay?
Well, but wait, that was when they were already losing money, man. So like when you start losing money, it's kind of like, whoa, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do.
I'm not going to say I saw how good the creative was. Then I saw how bad the creative was. It's not like these people just got stupider in a year. I don't believe that, right? I saw how good it was. I saw how bad it was. What's that in-between zone? Why? You know, Eric Bischoff has his reasons. Whatever has his reasons. Everybody has their reasons. But I think something definitely happened in that dash from 98 to 2000. Why the dramatic shift? And truth be told, I'll give you a prime example here. The culture in our society, even now, like especially now, like you remember, I handle a lot of the creative for like what the Grizzlies do on court and the mascot. The stuff we were doing in 2015, you cannot do anymore. Just right. Nobody will allow it. Right? So
people might not believe that, but like even with the Grizzlies, there are things that we cannot do now that we could do 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, especially 20 years ago.
Now, when you have an advocate like Ted Turner, his shares being divested because he's selling off, he's merging, and now you get these conglomerates who are worried about shareholders say, hey, you can't show that girl in the bikini anymore. You know, that brings us in. You can't say these words, you know, and so now the creative has to shift. Now, do I personally think they could have done a lot better job? Yeah, 100%. But they had to shift for a reason.
Yeah, those creative control clauses in those contracts that Bret Hart had, that Hulk Hogan had, and Nash and Hall might not have had them, but of course they had the ear of Eric Bischoff, and if they didn't want it to happen, it wasn't going to happen. When you have enough people around you that are all big stars telling you you're not going to do it, then you're kind of forced to do those schmaz disqualification finishes at the end of every main event, and you kind of run your fan base off because you don't give them what it was that they thought they were going to get. Since we're already here on Who Killed WCW, so my notes here, you had a 67, 64, something like that, $1 million offer on the table for Eric Bischoff and his guys. You end up selling it for $4 million. And I know a lot of people were asking, man, why is it that much less? They unloaded it. There's got to be a conspiracy theory. But in the documentary, we learned that the TBS and TNT broadcasting was off the table. So there was no television. So if there's no television, what are you buying? You're buying the library, you're buying some rings, you're buying a logo. I mean, they did have some assets.
A ring that isn't even the same size as the ring.
Not even the same size, not even the same style.
Correct.
The whole thing is different. Absolutely.
They sent those to training people just to have, like, hey, Undertaker, take one.
Yep. But when you're losing a shit ton of money, I mean, the way they're talking that this thing was bleeding like crazy. When you're losing that much money, sometimes it's like, whoa, just get rid of it. Because by me getting rid of all this, I'm not losing any more money. So I think they were just ready to unload that bad boy at that point.
Listen, this is where you have to get into business discussions that may or may not be over certain people's heads, right? That's why Kevin Nash didn't know anything about the real behind the scenes business stuff. Certainly Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair wouldn't have, because they're not.
Kevin Nash is so smug this whole thing. Every time the camera goes on him, I'm like, don't even want to.
My paycheck didn't change. What do I care?
Yeah.
I just yourself on top. What do you mean? Why you?
Bro, I could have gone without you even being in there. Give me Vince Russo over listening to Kevin Nash, just because of like how terrible his attitude was, and we have a little bit behind the scenes with Kevin Nash. But like,
so my point in all of this is saying that like when we hear about losing boatloads and boatloads or shit ton of cash, as you would say, but we're also having the executives saying we are taking assets or losses from another company and parking them in WCW. It's going to inflate those losses. So let's just hypothetically say they were losing $20 million a year, but on their spreadsheet, it looks like they're losing $200 a year, $200 million a year. That's a huge difference, right? And so 20 million may be able to be overcome. 200 is looking at the executives and the shareholders saying, get this crap the hell out of here. It's losing everything. And I can tell you, this happens in every conglomerate. I do it with my own gyms. I park debt over at this gym because it can handle it more. There's more real tangible revenue coming in. I'm going to pay these bills with this money, and I'm going to do this with this money, and I'm going to even out these balance sheets. That's just business, right? So when you look at something and say, oh, it was because of the contracts, maybe a small part because of the contracts, but a lot of them is that they could have been taking the Cartoon Network debt or contract or whatever and parking them in that, because guess what? Turner Broadcast owned them all, so they could.
Yeah. Officially, I'm going to tell you right here that I feel like booking officially killed WCW. All right, so hear me out. I think that booking killed WCW because booking made WCW. By booking and hiring Hulk Hogan, boom, there you go. Macho Man, boom, there you go. Then you have the NWO, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, including Hulk Hogan. That's all booking, that's all creative. So your booking helped build this 83 weeks, right, of beating the WWE, but then also ultimately booking killed it, because if you look at it, creative control, somebody having creative control, especially multiple people having creative control, that affects the booking, that affects the creative. Creative affects ratings, and it can affect revenue because it has to be a good show. That to me all goes back to booking. Creative is booking. If you have something wrong with creative and you have creative control, it's all about the booking. And when the booking got so bad that those numbers just sank huge, and I guess I did not understand, because I was a kid growing up and I've seen all the documentaries and stuff, but just how bad and how quickly that it was nosediving at that point. And it looks like, to me, it was very good booking. And then you had NWO, LWO, Red and Black, One Warrior Nation. You had all these different renditions of NWO. You just ran it right into the ground. And then at the end, when you were as desperate as you could be to bring in a Vince Russo, a genius writer, all he did, and I said this last week, and I'm just echoing it because you're here right now. Think about it. You hired like one of the most prolific wrestling writers that you called a genius. And what did he do? He wrote himself into the program. He wrote himself as the top villain. He wrote himself as the world champion. I don't care that he put the title on David Arquette. I'd put the Memphis Heritage Championship on David Arquette tomorrow and not think twice about it, baby. Just imagine how many people would be talking about that, right? But you booked yourself, Vince Russo, who had never been an on-air character before, and then you just literally drove it right into the ground. So I'm just going to say, good, bad, and ugly, booking definitely killed WCW. And that factors into Hulk Hogan and all these guys with creative control. And really, Eric Bischoff was the mastermind behind it all. He made it happen. But then I ultimately think that he lost control of it, and that's why WCW died.
What are you going to ask me?
I'm going to ask you right now. And I'm trying to think of what you're going to say, because I do know all the Turner executives didn't want it. But think about this. If the booking had not gone out of control, then WCW or Turner would not have, they would have literally just dealt with wrestling, even though they hated it. if it kept making the money it was making in 1998. If it continued on that high trajectory, then it would still be around today, no matter how much Turner.
I disagree with you on that point. I agree with you on the prior point. So I say this: what killed WCW was a death by 1,000 cuts, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the historic rise and the historic fall isn't, in my opinion, over one reason. Yes, the creative got horrendously bad, right? That's a cut, right? It's one cut. Hold on.
If Memphis went under, like if my company went under, they would say, "Great job, Dustin brought it back," but then ultimately he didn't do that good a job at running.
You can say, "Well, I'm the president or I'm the owner. The buck stops with me," right? That's not Eric Bischoff. It was Ted Turner who protected him, right? They've explicitly outlined this. Ted Turner said, "Don't mess with Eric. Let him do his thing." Then when mergers and acquisitions happen, right now, there's more people or cooks in the kitchen, shall you say, saying, "Well, you can't do this and you can do this." And now Ted Turner can't protect him anymore. That doesn't mean that creative has to go as free as it did.
Oh,
so
right.
But I'm just saying he didn't have the freedom that he once had. Yes, creative was crappy, but also he didn't have the freedom anymore. You compound that with allocating debt to them. You compound that. So Eric Bischoff wants to say, "Oh, it was the executives." The Marks want to say it was the creative. All I'm saying is, there's only one logical way: is it had to be a combination of them all. Right, and that's what I think this documentary did a good job. It told all stars, except for the haters of like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. It told all stars.
So there's no conspiracy theory, right? There was no conspiracy. There's a conspiracy theory, but we don't believe that, right? That there was there's somebody on the inside that helped WWE buy it cheaper.
The new guy coming in did not want wrestling, no matter if it made $100 million, right? Because he could say, "I could still sell this time slot for $200 million," right? I don't care how much money it's making. But here's the secret sauce in all of it, right? We cannot look at the death of WCW through 2024 eyes. We have to look at it through 2020 eyes, okay, or 2000 eyes, because the conspiracy of 65 million down to 4. Guess what? If the time slot's not there, hey, well, the library was worth more than 4 million. Not in 2000.
Right.
It's not worth it. Nobody had platforms. There was no WWE network. There was no, special streaming. There was none of that. So all you owned were some master tapes that you didn't know if we were going to even have a technology to put out there in the future.
You were still 10 years away from WWE Network even being discussed, because when I was there in 2010 in developmental, that was an idea that Vince McMahon had told.
But they wanted it as a channel. They wanted it as a channel on television, kind of like the Yankee Sports Network. They have their own channel, like Bally Sports. They have their own channel, right? So it's unfair to look at it through 2024 eyes and say that was an inside job, right? I don't believe so. I just think they said, "Hey, unload it, get whatever, 2 million done or 4 million done. Get it."
Boom. We don't want any more of it. We're not losing. It can't hurt us any longer. And just to, I don't know that Ted Turner really needs anybody to kind of take up for him, but people might ask, what about Ted Turner? Why did he allow this to happen? You have to remember that every time Ted Turner, every time something sold, it was benefiting him as a person. Personally, he would make more and more money. Now, he lost more and more control of his company, but ultimately you build a big company
to
hopefully sell it one day and make a shit ton of money. And that's exactly what Ted Turner was doing. Despite it hurting WCW, he became multi, probably a billionaire.
Who won in all this? Ted Turner.
Ted Turner did win in all this. All right, best wrestling that I watched all week it was the Wyatt Six. Wyatt Six making their debut on Monday Night Raw was absolutely awesome. Bo Dallas sitting down with himself, Uncle Howdy, and discussing this. If you have not seen this promo, Eric, this is like taking somebody and sitting them down and talking about their dead brother, all the plans that they had, a guy who is beloved, a guy who we are still can't believe that he's not here, big time WWE superstar, Bray Wyatt. But this promo was just as real as it gets, if you ask me. And having worked with them, I'll tell you, my first match that I ever refereed at Florida Championship Wrestling for developmental was the Usos versus Bray and Bo. And literally, Bray looked at me and said, "Hey, ref, stay the fuck out of the way." I'm like, okay. So, go way back. But yeah, Wyatt 6, it was very cool. I don't know that I'm a big fan. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to scan the QR codes or pause the TV to scan that QR code to get the hint to see what's going to happen next. I'm not the guy that's going to look at all the dates that they have up there and try to figure it out, whatever. I'm just going to read the tweets and see where it's going and then watch it.
And Zers are.
What's that? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But that's not me. So I'm not saying that I'm just a huge fan of the whole thing, but the way that they did debut, the way they made it a big deal, that's the best wrestling that I watched all week. And then also a big shout out to Chris Van Vliet. He's got a really great interview with The Undertaker. He's got another interview with Mark Henry talking about all the talent that he's helped. So go to YouTube, check out Chris Van Vliet. Really, really good stuff. So that was the best wrestling that I watched all week. And remember, coming up this weekend, it's AEW Forbidden Door. That's coming up this Sunday. You can watch absolutely free at Dave & Buster's. I have free power cards, which are $10 game cards that you get to have absolutely free. Plus, we're going to give away some AEW Collision and Rampage tickets for Lander Center. That's coming up on Saturday, July 6th. AEW returns to the Memphis area. Check this out.
South Haven, on Saturday, July 6th. All Elite Wrestling presents Collision and Rampage.
The best professional wrestling this world has ever seen.
Get the feeling as the biggest stars in professional wrestling bring a Saturday night fight to Lander Center.
That's what AEW is about.
Be a part of a live experience you can't find anywhere else. AEW Collision and Rampage, live from South Haven, Mississippi, Saturday, July 6th. Tickets on sale now at AEWTIX.com.
All right, welcome back. About to wrap things up here on Grind City Wrestling, but we do have AEW Forbidden Door coming up, so I'm pulling out my old trusty phone here, and I'm going to pull up the card.
Will Ospreay's got to go over, right?
Man, they just won. Swerve Strickland just won the title. Did they take it off of him that quick?
Who's the bigger star?
That's kind of arguable. They are really pushing Will Ospreay at this point to where, like, he was even in the ring with MJF this week and kind of overshadowed MJF. And while I'm pulling up this card, I got to ask you, has MJF officially jumped the shark?
Meaning what?
It's the same old stuff. And babyface shilling MJF, I'm just not a fan of it. They have the biggest heel in the last 20 years who signs autographs and throws the paper. He cusses people out at his autograph table. He says things on the microphone that nobody has ever said before and gets away with it. And now you've got him being this big-time babyface. I don't know that I understand it. All right, AEW Forbidden Door. Do you know anything about this card?
Yeah. Got it.
Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay. That's the top one. Swerve Strickland just won the world title. Will Ospreay is what, the North American champion?
And he was like, in my opinion, you got to put it on Will because he was like, let's just say they're outside of Mercedes Moné, their biggest, kind of acquisition, bringing him in. If they don't put him in the title and let him see what he can do with it, what is
he would have two titles. So do they make him two champ Will Ospreay this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Whichever one means the most, right?
We have a ladder match for the AEW TNT Championship. It's vacant since Edge is out. You got Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe versus Jack Perry versus Dante Martin versus Leo Rush versus El Phantasmo. To me, this one has Jack Perry written all over it.
It doesn't move the needle for me, truth be told.
Winner takes all match, AEW TBS Championship, along with the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Women's Championship, Mercedes Moné.
You like all these different titles. It just
I don't.
I hate it. I can't keep them damn straight, and everybody can't be on top. Yeah. Which one means more? Which one? I can get on my rant and my soapbox about this. Like, listen, it's fun to reach high spots and do a lot of stuff, but at least give me a straight story. Give me one straight line.
Yeah. There's no reason to have another championship added into this. Now, and of course, I always go back and kind of compare it to Memphis Wrestling. If you're watching Memphis Wrestling and you see the New Japan, strong women's title on there, that's cool. You see it every now and then. You might see the Texas Heavyweight Championship from Reality of Wrestling, or you might see the NWA World Champion. It's very few and far between, but it's like a specialty, like a feature attraction match when we do that. But it seems like AEW doesn't really necessarily make it a feature attraction. It's just like, if you got a title from another company, just bring it. We'll put them all on TV. So I think there's no way that Mercedes Moné loses that. Timeless Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa. No, I'm saying that wrong, but I'm a big fan of her. She's with Mariah May. Toni Storm victorious there, I would believe. Zack Sabre Jr., do you know this guy?
Yeah, but not well. Like, that's what I was basically saying. Like, who is this guy?
He's like a Will Ospreay, where he's this guy that's been fantastic all across the country, but just really, or all across the world, but really hasn't made a major impact, in the United States just yet. He's going against Orange Cassidy. Moxley versus Naito. Do you know Naito?
Nope.
And I'm not messing with you here. I'm proving that some of these big stars from New Japan Pro Wrestling don't really resonate that well into the United States because they haven't had that television time. To me, I compare it to like a Kenny Omega. Obviously, he was big all around the world, but us here in the States, we hadn't seen his best work because most of that was in Japan, and now he's
But even with Kenny Omega, you knew the name Kenny Omega. Like, you knew it, right?
Yeah,
I don't
heard it.
Names, right? And maybe it's just because it's foreign and you don't attach yourself to them as much as you would as, I don't know, whatever. But I do want to talk about, right? And then and that's kind of the same thing of, booking MJF against a New Japan. Like, I don't get it.
Me either. Also, there was, and we're running a little bit low on time, but for MJF to issue a challenge to Daniel Garcia for Wembley, I just don't know why. Well, I know they're trying to push Daniel Garcia, but Daniel Garcia is not nearly on the level of an MJF at this point.
But what I'm saying, just about putting him against a New Japan guy for this one, is it just to have him in his first pay-per-view match back, come out looking ultra strong?
Yes. I was okay with them putting him against Rush because he could beat Rush.
You want to see him against a Daniel. You want to see him against a guy on that level. It's the new guy against the old guard. Bam, let MJF now take over and he be the superstar. It's not what I'm getting here. I'm not getting that.
Either way, the show is going to be really good. We're all going to watch it absolutely free at Dave & Buster's in Memphis. Show up, show out. That's coming up.
I'll tell you that.
What's that?
Jericho needs to get back on the gas.
I am not liking the new Jericho stuff. I don't even like the way that he talks. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Anyways, here we are, Grind City Wrestling. I am Dustin Starr. He's Eric McMahon, and we have a big weekend of Memphis Wrestling coming up. This weekend, the boss is looking for another opportunity at the Memphis Wrestling Internet Championship, and he is willing to risk it all. You can check it out Friday at 11 p.m. on Action News 5+, then again on Saturday at 11 a.m. on Action News 5+. But of course, you can watch anywhere, absolutely free, all across the world, and live chat with us, youtube.com/@Memphis Wrestling. The schedule is absolutely loaded. Check it out.
Memphis Wrestling is hotter than ever. This Sunday, June 30th, watch AEW Forbidden Door with us at Dave & Buster's in Memphis. It's free to watch. Sunday, July 14th is Memphis Wrestling XL, featuring former AEW and WWE star Parker Boudreaux, plus TNA Wrestling star Marty Bell. Thursday, August 8th, Memphis Wrestling is coming to the Benton County Fair in Camden, Tennessee. Saturday, August 10th, it's Rumble on the Trail, Part 2, benefiting St. Jude, featuring Tommy Dreamer. All tickets are on sale now. Get yours right now at memphiswrestling.tv.
Welcome back to Grind City Wrestling. E-Rock, big weekend coming up. What you got going on?
Groundhog's Day, dog. Don't worry,
Same
you'll be there in
thing.
4 months. You'll be there in 4 months.
Same thing. Oh, yeah. Got a big weekend coming up. I'm pretty cool this weekend. It's next week where I have July 2nd and July 3rd. That's going to be the big AutoZone Park 4th of July celebration. That's going to be on the 3rd this year, so come check it out. Fireworks, all that stuff coming up next week. And of course, next week is AEW Collision and Rampage at Lander Center. So be on the lookout for our official pre-party. That's all I got this week. Anything you want to leave us with, E?
Shout out Zach Edey, newest member of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, big old boy, right?
University, as Kelsey Wright Johnson is over here sporting her Purdue.
Isn't he like 7'10" or something?
7'4". I need 7'4", 2-time National Player of the Year.
Love it. Very nicely done. I am Dustin Starr. He's E-Rock Eric McMahon, and this was Grind City Wrestling.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Or it was just Hulk Hogan and bad booking.
Take the easy way out, I guess.